So today I'm going to be talking about one of my influences for doing collage art, and I'm going to be doing the major one that really got me down the road of this, which is the punk movement. So I've talked about this a lot when I've talked about Professor Dawn Aids' book on photo montage. The main thing she had missed out of it was punk rock, and I know there's a book that called his name, even though I got it over Christmas, so I will do a review of this book at some point when I've had a chance to read it properly. Um, of Where they do talk about it, and but in this case, I'm going to be using these two books as my source material, as my examples, and this is first one, and I got these a couple of months, a few weeks ago, because it was my birthday, so these were presents. So I've got Too Fast to Live. There's punk and post-punk graphics, 1976 to 1986 by Andrew Crevine, and I have The Art of Punk by Russ Bestley, Alex Ogg, and Zoe Howe. And so these were both very appealing to me, and it's because far too few people talk about punk as the artistic part of the movement. They mostly talk about the music, which was the bit that sold the most, but it also as with much more so with punk than it is with a lot of other musical movements. You have the visual aspect of it. It wasn't just a musical movement. It was also a collection of poets, filmmakers, and in this case, visual artists. And usually these movements will have their own form of visual art form that goes along with it. Same way how you get with like metal albums and power metal, that kind of thing, where they have like a certain aesthetic. So, but I'm of the belief that punk was the first movement where the album cover was weaponized, so forth. It had the greatest synergy between the what was on the record and the actual record cover. And it doesn't just go to records, as record covers you'll see. It was very much a thing about the flyer you were handed or the poster you saw was as much as part of the message or as part of the movement as the people on stage with the instruments. So this first one, Too Fast to Live. So we'll look through all these punk graphics. I'm not going to be able to go through it exactly page by page because you can see these books are monsters. But so you got these early stuff, and you got a guy talking about his one of the writers talking about his bedroom in 1979. A lot of Jamie Reed going on there. In fact, his room, this side of his room, is totally Jamie Reed. It's all Sex Pistols, I think. And you've got Damned. So you have, obviously, he was in a band at some point. So you have some of these earlier graphics weren't quite so what you expect. But here, even here early on, actually, you're starting with collaging. This is for an issue of Sniff and Glue magazine. And the pre-punk, you've got people like the Velvet Underground. You've got these great graphics. And that old magazine, Let It Rock. But here you're starting to get with this New York Dolls poster, you're starting to get a lot of different types of graphics coming in. Where you have art, it's not just when you have here, it's like a picture of the band, but you're starting to get the whole thing of it being not just pictures of the band, where you have like a poster specially made for the poster. I mean, for the advertising gig. I mean, you had it a bit with like psychedelic era as well, but not to the raw and ready extent that you did with with punk, and here you're starting to get like the experimental look for these things. So, but I'll get into, when I can see it, bits about the where it involves collage and revolutionary artwork. So you got here the Tom Robinson band with the very famous raised fist logo, and of course you've got Dave King's logo for Crass. People always forget about him. A lot of people you'd be surprised to know don't think that he will think that G Vorcha did that because she did all the other bits of artwork, but Dave King did the logo, the Crass logo that you see everywhere. I have a T-shirt of it. So here you're getting some of these things you recognise now as punk flyers and artwork. It's an Adam and the Ants. So you're getting a lot of experimental artwork, collaging, and this is where, and some post-punks of craft work, where you'll also maybe start to get use of some of the political stuff, or very much a different vibe, like with this Throbbing Gristle one, where it's of a person and a very austere looking, maybe a factory building. And of course here's the cover of Orgasm Addict. It was the poster for it, and her name, and it was by an artist called Linda Sterling, who I'm going to go into more in another video. I actually went to London recently, and then I was for my birthday weekend, and about 2 days after I was coming home, when I was down there, I found out that 2 days after I was going to be coming back home, there had a gallery was going to do an exhibition of her work, so I wasn't pleased about that. It was a shame. But it's funny to actually see quite an aggressive looking piece of artwork there on the Buzzcocks, who you generally are nowadays very much what you would call pop punk. Back then they were probably considered a lot more aggressive, but that's what the early movement was like. I mean, it's just this great. This is really whether this one aspect of how this look came about. I mean, yes, these are coloured prints, but for some of these, we've got a lot of black and white, as we saw back here, the posters, because these weren't and ones like this these will have been flyers that were made on photocopiers, because people had jobs, or even getting a photocopier in the public library and so forth, or in some places in their office, or their dad's office, mother's office, was they would be able to copy them. You wouldn't have to pay to have much to have these printed. So, but it gave a certain style to the aesthetic to it, because of how it's both taking the photograph and printing it, but it's not back then it didn't have the ability to turn it into a bunch of dots, so it was sometimes a very muddy looking picture, but it was great for what we had then. Even when I did my, even a bit now, but now people can much cheaper than it would have been for a photocopier to actually do the whole thing on your computer and print the whole thing on your printer. Back then we couldn't do that, especially back then in the 70s, but even back then in the late 90s, I wasn't able to do that so much. So you've got this Clash album, collaged, very obvious dot matrix printing, stark colours. So this was a staple of how it looked, of the look of the movement, and again, political artwork was coming into it. The Clash were a fairly political band. There were those that would criticise them for being on a major label, but the DIY thing hadn't picked up that kind of steam back then everybody got some kind of a deal. They just got a major one, not an alternative one like, for instance, the Dams did. But the I mean, it's part of the aesthetic, you know, the cut and paste lettering. Also, this was also part of it, stenciled type lettering was because because something like that is just it's easily accessible. You could buy a stencil kit. I mean, I used to in the very early days when we do magazines. Um, Before I had a computer, and so I wanted to have bigger lettering that wasn't available on my typewriter. I would have very early on I had used stencil kits, but then I ended up buying some of those Electroset kits. So I don't know if anybody doesn't know what they are. They're these little semi-transparent sheets that were like a plastic, and they had letters on where you wanted to put the letter. You put it on there, and you went over it hard with a pencil. It would transfer that onto the page, and then I could just like make it bigger or smaller with a photocopier. The photocopier was my friend. It was a very long process of doing that though, because I had to go and have one in my house. I nearly did. So, and here again, cut and paste thing, very stark, knackered up photocopy image. In fact, to get that, after a while, some people actually went specifically for that image. So when some early specials records and posters and so forth, Jerry Dammers, I believe it was, he was an art student. He would actually prepare some artwork and then give it one or two passes through the photocopier to knacker it up a bit. And that was because that was the aesthetic. And so here you have the Sex Pistols poster. Yeah, but this isn't an official one. This is actually a shop saying you could buy. Oh no, this is a parody record called Elizabeth. And so yeah, that's something else actually. But they're using the cut and paste. Very dark artwork, very dark in tone. So, and this Eddie and the Hot Rods one as well. So this had become a staple of punk. But all this, a lot of early stuff that was before the thing that really influenced me. So here you've got, that is a bit kind of like what you would find on a Crass record, this magazine. Start illustration. So this is all good. This there's a lot of experimentation and working with how printing works, because some people would also learn how to do screen printing. So there'd be a lot of experimenting with that, and it was always these things. See what you could do yourself, because it will put the power into your hands. And I've been actually going through past here a lot of Sex Pistols stuff. So obviously you've got where this really began. Jamie Reed's artwork, the one for Anarchy in the UK. So that's where his artwork really brought in the thing to this country. It's about safety pins, and the thing about bulldog clips, but more about safety pins became the look for punk. But then people in New York were using them anyway. I think that's something Vivienne Westwood saw and thought, well, that would be a good idea. But they were doing it just because, it's to hold their clothes together, because they had no money. So it wasn't an aesthetic thing. And they're instead of knackering up the clothes were that knackered because they were old and weren't being replaced. So here, very different styles of cover artwork too, because you don't often think of these holiday comic strip things as part of a punk record. But it was a very good and it was based upon a Belgian Tourist Authority brochure. But it was a very good and clever way of doing things. So I don't know if this is all. It probably wasn't all Jamie Reed. This Great Record Swindle poster was though. A lot of this. The oh, Jamie Reed. This Great Record Swindle poster. It was designed by Jamie Reed, but the artwork was done by someone called Trevor Key. And he designed a fair bit of this, and this guy Trevor Key turns up a bit. So again, a lot of the same. But something was also a look, you know, a black and white image, but then the red lettering was a staple of that. It was part of their aesthetic. Again, X-ray specs. And also, I know I've used it before, the whole thing of the struck out eyes. I think that was a thing that was used in tabloid newspapers at the time for somebody who was considered guilty or something. So that's where that came from, and it got imported into punk. And so here is where it gets into American, and this Black Flag poster is weird. It's not really the kind of thing you really expect for a band like Black Flag. Though it seems a bit more maybe new wave-ish or even before then, but it is very California. But it's not the kind of thing you expect from Black Flag, because the thing from Black Flag you expect is stuff like this, which is Raymond Pettibone's amazing artwork, because he did the vast majority of their artwork. He was guitarist Greg Ginn's brother, and he did it for basically just a copy of whatever he did put out. So that work was always great. And you've got early Bus-Off Surfers, again, same kind of single coloured, cheap aesthetic. This is where it's really getting to what started me off, the Dead Kennedys, and this fold out here for the artwork for California Uberalis. So you've got Jerry Brown, who since has been in communication with Biafra, and they've had many talks, and I think Jerry Brown understands what was going on. Biafra understands things a bit better now. I think they get along. When the time they met, they actually got along fairly well, because it was kind of like dropped on Biafra. I think by the sounds of things, he met him. Somebody introduced him. Oh, this is Jelly Biafra. He wrote that song California Uberalis about you. But they seem to get along fairly fine. Biafra doesn't agree with everything that Jerry Brown does, but he understands that has a very much environmental concern. The environment is very much a concern for him, and as it is with Biafra. So I think they get along in that regard. But there's all these great pieces. So not Winston Smith. This one is. Well, they said Greg Wright. Or maybe Winston did something similar. But these here, as based upon Winston Smith's Idol piece, and he did his poster of the cover of Fresh Fruit, which I will be doing one of that album, and I'll be using my actual album because I've got the original pressing with the heads on the artwork in the background on the back, and the great fold out. Shame there's not more Dead Kennedys on here, because this is really where it really is more about my kind of thing. But this is I think with the amount they have to put in, there's something has to give. I mean, this is a great collage for a poster for Island Records for Basement 5. So here we go. This is also where it gets good. It's obviously Crass. And you've heard me talk about G Vorcha before, so they actually got permission for this. They actually paid for permission to use it. It was a famous image of Lord Kitchener's secretary. So they actually paid for the to use that. This one is actually a collage. Some of G. Vorch's work I found out is not actually a collage. It's actually a painting. That's the paintings that are behave like collages, which I think is very clever and very unique. This the cover of Nagasaki Nightmare Big A Little A. I did a video on that recently, not too long ago. More crest, and it goes out of that. Because then a lot of post-punk stuff like The Cure. But I'll go to the other book, The Art of Punk. So, and this is where I'm going to get more of. I apologise if this is a lot of, oh, this is good. But this is how I feel about it. So you've got the again, as we've been through here, the proto-punk type of artwork. And these comics are good. This is when you still had to have some kind of access to better printing material, or you've actually got yourself onto a label. It was when people managed to get, like I said, in the office access to office photocopiers. That's when things really started to kick off for me, I think, anyway, for people to really produce it. And one thing that Jelly Biafra talked about actually is his advice to artists to actually put your artwork on your clothing, so instead of being shoved away in art galleries. So it forced people to see them. But could be the same with posters, photocopy posters, and just like fly posted everywhere, which is what we used to do. And basically, it means the streets were our art gallery. Nowadays, it's just putting stuff online. So, but still, there's a bit of that and stickering. So here you have again Sex Pistols stuff, which is really where it started to begin. So Jamie Reed was certainly a genius in this regard. Early Clash stuff was very much like this, with the taut, black and white, torn. So as to review, some of the early punk look was stark black and white, red lettering, torn paper. These were all part of the staples that we still use now. And like I said, starking difference, because not much grading, because this is photocopied. So these ones were a bit more like what you'd normally find on records, but that's punk aesthetic. That is something that a label has forced upon them. That's the kind of thing that they would have wanted to do. But the punk was one of these movements where it was beginning, where you had, it wasn't just in punk, but in some earlier bands, like for instance people like the Beatles, once they got to a certain stage, and people like Pink Floyd, they were famous enough they could say, no, this is how we're going to be doing this artwork. But especially on a major label, if you don't have much clout, you really don't get much say about what your cover art's going to be. You might be able to say, yes, I like that, no, I don't, but they wouldn't be able to go to the label and say, this is our idea for the cover. It was only after people like the Beatles, I think, where this started to become. But it did also still happen in punk, with some labels forcing artwork upon them. But where you get a lot of being DIY, certainly you would have had, and within a lot of cases with independent labels, you would have a lot more say about what you did for the cover, especially if it was independent. You'd have total say. So here we have a new wave of post-punk, where they're talking about. So this stuff wasn't quite so much the influence on me. It was when you got to. But then you've got like second wave of punk. People at the UK Subs, they had interesting stuff, and again, like I've shown this Clash Give 'Em Enough Rope cover, and so you would have again Collage type stuff with Killing Joke. They were very much post-punk and pre-industrially type stuff, although you could argue they were mostly on like their own in their own. They were their own genre. Here we go, DIY punk. This is where it starts to get to the kind of stuff that I'm mostly interested in, influenced by. So it's like this, very stark. The X show is very punk. And it shows and facelessness, because we were actually it wasn't. This was pre-Gen X, but this is where the term Generation X came from, because it was actually a band called that. So you had a lot of people making covers themselves by either drawing, photographing, collaging, electrosetting. This is where the artistic part of the community came into it, that you don't see so much of, hear so much about, but they were a massive part of it. So again, you have a lot of photocopied stuff, so, and a lot of screen printing, because that was people were learning that kind of stuff so that they can they don't have to be at the mercy of someone else. It's the DIY aspect, do it yourself aspect of it, because like Crass's first releases, these folded up record covers, they would actually the very first one, they hand folded them themselves, and then when it sold enough, they were able to afford to actually have some pay to have it put together. But they were everything was part of they were the final say on everything they did, and came up with, designed everything themselves. And if somebody else did something, it was because they paid to have them do it, but they had it was their design. And this is one of the important key parts of punk. I mean, as you can see, it's seen enough with this kind of artwork. By the way, this Subhumans is not the British band, that's the Canadian one. But as you can see easily from this part kind of artwork, where it really, this movement where Collage is absolutely perfect for it. It just works so well with it, because it's a way of, you don't need to know how to paint very well. This is kind of almost demeaning what punk does. I mean, Collage does on the surface, saying, well, you don't need to be able to be a very good artist. You can cut stuff up. That's not how it works. But exactly. But so you have to have a good artistic eye. You need to be able to have a good sense of what goes together, and the cutting out is its own. It has its own trick to it. But here you have done in the Crass Records style. This is why it's and also it's just the whole. It's easily adapted to political artwork. So here we are, anarcho-punk. So this is going to be a lot of where my influences live. So because you have that Crass bit there, or the whole D beat. I mean, this is painted, but it could be the same thing as being like Collage. So you have a lot of this. I've got that, by the way, that record. So you have here collaged, where they've collaged in Third Reich elements into number 10 Downing Street, which is where the government are. Getting Crass, we could not have any conversation about this kind of thing without them. And G. Vorch's fantastic record artwork. So here you have see what this. Oh, this is a This is in one of their bullshit detector records, because they series, because they decided, well, they're making enough money off their own records, they could actually they'd start to put out records of artists, just have people send them tapes, and they would put them onto a record. So when they started releasing records for other people, so this is Conflict's first release, which I've got, not the original pressing, it's a repress, and not the thrash metal band, but a punk band called Anthrax. Flux of Pink Indians. So, and of course, the Chumbawamba Nevermind the Ballads, one I've talked about, and a parody of that called Barefaced Hypocrisy sale records, because there were some people were upset with Chumbawamba for signing to EMI. And of course, Subhumans with Dick Lucas's artwork. Don't talk about him as much. I will talk about him at some point, because he does some great artwork. Again, Black Flag Records and Minor Threat. I have this, and I've seen that poster before as well. So this is what I've said, where the the gig poster is as much a part of the movement as the music. It's everything. It's the first movement where everything came together like this, and there hasn't been another one since. And this is why it's such an influence on me, and not just the collages. Even like the pieces that aren't collage, it's the whole aesthetic of it. This is a Winston Smith cover for Alternative Tentacles compilation. H.R. Giger's poster in the Frankenchrist record, which I'm going to be doing that record cover, his favourite record cover at some point, and we'll be talking about that. My copy of Holiday in Cambodia isn't that; it's another one. It's the one of the person whacking the person who's hanging from a tree with a chair. I've got that one as well. I'm going to be probably going to that art. I'll be going to that one. You're going to be getting a lot of Dead Kennedys and a lot of Crass. I've talked about this because this is on the back of this. So this piece here, so great how he was able sometimes just needs one thing, just replacing what's in the window, and you can come up with something great like that. So actually, just the way that the old people are looking at that as, you know, hey, look at that there. How he's able to twist that is, but it's to show, it's making a lie to tell the truth, basically, and this is what punk artwork is so great at. So, and here you have the more modern type stuff. Again, Winston Smith. I bought this Green Day because Green Day are the ones bands I think they're kind of okay. I'll listen to them, but I don't really buy much of their records because they're okay. So I won't turn off if it comes on, but I'm rarely gonna seek them out to listen to them. But I bought this primarily because Winston Smith did the cover art, and I've got that Napalm Death record. That Rancid, I've got this Rancid one. Yeah, the Napalm Death one is a great. This is going to be another good favourite record cover as well. And I've got that House Rotten 7-inch. It's an EP. Sometimes, yeah, the actual record cover is also a bit of a reason why I might buy a record. So, I mean, here somebody's parodied that Buzzcocks record, the Linda Sterling artwork, and here Punk Rock Aerobics. I've heard of that. So again, Citizen Fish, stuff by the band of Dick Lucas's. So it's great artwork of his. He's the one. I'm going to do one of their ones on as a favorite record cover. It's because that's a good collage piece as well. We'll get to that when we get to it. And Bikini Kill, they were a great one for this kind of artwork as well. The where you got into the zines. I haven't really gone into the zine. This hasn't, not much has gone into the zines that much, because that was a big movement all in itself. Because my early way of being putting my artwork out was through my own zine. Because when I couldn't find anyone else to use my work, I couldn't get gallery work done. And it's, you know, it's hard to get someone to use your artwork for their record cover. It has happened, but you know, they're paying a lot of money to put that out, so they're going to have to really, really like what you've done. So zines were the best thing because I could make them cheaply. So that's just these two books and my thoughts, my rambling thoughts of scatterbrain thoughts about this, because for me it's more of a feel thing than me trying to explain it, but I've explained it the best I can. But absolutely look up punk artwork, and you can go down a rabbit hole and look at this for years. So let me know what you think of this, whether you like these books. I think they're very interesting, good books. So they're good table reads, and just if you want to flip through and be inspired, these are absolutely great books to get. So let me know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. My description has my link tree in it, which has my merch links and my socials. And I shall speak to you soon. Thank you.